So let me start by telling you a story. We are working with a customer to build their data platform, data analytics platform. And so far, we have transformed their accounting, finance, operations, HR, and few other departments. The data comes from multiple data sources like their ERP systems, NetSuite, Salesforce, HubSpot, ADP, and few other systems. The platform is built on Microsoft Azure Cloud using Synapse Analytics. Every time we have to add a new data source, it takes time. And if you look at the platform today, every day the whole system runs, it takes 13 hours to refresh the entire data. And of those 13 hours, 7 hours alone goes in loading the data from the source systems into the Azure cloud. And every time we need to integrate new data, it is adding new engineers to write new data pipelines, and it's going to add more time to the daily refresh. The platform is built in such a way that users cannot live without their Power BI reports available a single day. I'll give you another example. We have another customer. We have built their data platform using Azure Synapse Analytics platform, and we have finance, sales, and marketing data. Recently, we started doing CRM analytics. They happen to use Microsoft Dynamics platform for CRM. So when we were discussing the solution of the project, we realized that we need to bring all this data into Azure, and we need to do data engineering pipelines. And then that's when we said, wait, why are we doing this? The data of Microsoft Dynamics is sitting somewhere in Azure. Synapse Analytics is also somewhere in Azure. So why are we writing data pipelines to move data from Azure to Azure? 2 weeks ago, we met with a new prospecting client who happened to be in real estate business. They have grown very fast in the last 2 years. They have doubled in size in less than 2 years. They have acquired 20 businesses, and they are going to acquire 10 more in next 18 months. Even if for operational purposes, these businesses can run in silo for the time being, they need to immediately consolidate the financials and also do the customer consolidation for better customer experience and customer acquisitions point of view. We heard from Shikhar about Choice Bank strategy of how they are leveraging these ecosystems of platforms and 75 different systems and tools. And then Shikhar talked about how they are going to leverage the data analytics. But one thing Shikhar will soon realize that for them to become a differentiator leveraging data analytics, they need to ingest all this data, which is now sitting into multiple platforms, to build their analytics. So I'm sure he will soon feel the pain. Nitin talked about how organizations are using multi-platforms and how this multi-platform approach is enabling the organizations to become more innovative and respond to rapid customer growth and business growth. Organizations are using different platforms for different functions, so to improve process efficiencies. And organizations are leveraging the right platform for the right capabilities to build and innovate. Multi-platforms are going to be here. We can no longer operate in a single place. So this whole idea of symphony of platform is, do not limit yourself to one system. Use the platform for its capability that help you innovate and accelerate. But with that strategy comes a challenge. What about data analytics? How do you handle and manage your data analytics? Because now your data resides into multiple platforms, whether it is Stripe or Salesforce or HubSpot or any other platform. And whether you are doing BI, reporting, AI, machine learning, you need to consolidate this data for able to generate. And it will only be helpful if it is cost effective and it can be done in a timely manner. Whether it is real-time reporting or a batch reporting, the data has to be as refreshed as the business need is. So I'm going to ask this question. How do we think about a scenario where we can minimize the engineering effort to synchronize this data, as well as minimize the time it takes to run these pipelines on a daily basis? My name is Tarun Agarwal. I lead the Axion's Microsoft Cloud practice, and I happen to learn a thing or two about data. So let's take a look. In a typical analytical world, we have all these source systems from which generates the data, and then we have these analytical systems where we consume the data. And in between, we have this data ingestion process, which transports or transmits or ingests or synchronizes this data from your operational systems into your analytical systems. This is it's a very small piece of the puzzle of the entire analytics platform, but it is a very crucial step. Because as we know that an organizational analytical capability is only as mature as its ability to analyze disparate data systems in an effective manner. And if I just give, for example, give you a broad view of what happens in the entire data platform, we extract the data from the source systems, we transform it, we massage it, we model it, and we store it, and then we consume it in our analytical systems. So a question to the audience: which is the most popular function or feature we use in this entire data platform? Anybody? So the question is, what is the number one feature we use in a data analytics platform in this whole process? Okay, the answer is export to Excel. We do all this work, and then still users want to export. And somehow, that Excel file ends up becoming a data source. So let's understand what are some of the approaches we have used in a typical manner. So the first one is virtualization. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the virtualization. This is that thing that we started doing it, that let's leverage our operational systems and create this virtual database layer in form of views, and let's use it to do our analytics. This is mostly single data source based. It is not going to work in a multi-cloud environment. So let's move on. The next one is the ETL. And ETL has been prevalent for us many decades. And that's where we extract the data from the source systems, and then we transform it, and then load it into our analytical systems. But this extraction of the data, that is the data ingestion or the synchronization piece, that we still have to move the data physically and load it into our analytical systems. And that's the longest pole in the tent. And as the cloud technology started maturing, we started moving away from ETL into ELT, where we said, let's extract the data, and then let's first load it into our cloud platforms and use the compute power of cloud to then transform it and load it. But still, the extract piece remains the same. We still have to invest time in physically moving the data from the source systems into our analytical environment. So one question to anybody, I think, when we talk about ETL, and maybe there's a question for finance team. Anybody from finance here? Anish, where is Anish? What does ETL stands for finance team? It's Excel taking long time. So let's understand what some of the challenges we have seen in these conventional approaches. When we talk about ETL or ELT, typically these are running in batch mode. They bulk extract the data and take long time. So it's both ETL and ELT are long, slow, and tedious process. That's not going to work in today's environment when we're talking about accelerating. By the way, that reminds me another story. an ETL developer, they are very close to me. ETL developer goes to a bar, walks up to 2 tables, and says, "May I join you?" All right, let's understand what's really happening. So both, whether we are doing ETL or ELT, we are actually pulling the data from the source system and then loading it. The onus of pulling the data resides with the analytics team, the data engineering team. They are the ones who are responsible for pulling this data. And what if we challenge this whole thing, and instead of pulling the data, we pivot it and start thinking about a push mechanism, where instead of we pulling the data, the operational systems are pushing the data as and when they identify a change because of any CRUD operations. So what will happen here is the change will be in a small packet of data that can move much faster than trying to move a bulk data. And we heard from Rotary team yesterday, Paul and Mary talked about how they are solving the data synchronization problem from a different angle, but their approach was also very similar. They were using event grid technology to send this push data into their downstream applications. And we are going to hear from Pranav after this session around event-driven architecture to hear more about it. So with that background, let's try to understand what are some of the emerging approaches which are now available where which we can use in a digital environment. So there are multiple approaches which are emerging. The first one is supported by the platform itself. The platform realizes that there are needs where organizations need to build analytics, and they are helping for a faster way of moving this data. The second one is supported by external tools, and they also allow some data connectors for us to move this data faster. And the third one is code-first approach, where we can use the same push mechanism ourselves to move the data faster. But the common theme across all three of them is it is leveraging atomic synchronization. We are moving away from bulk and batch-oriented to an atomic synchronization where every single change is identified and pushed in your analytics environment. So let's dig deeper into the first one, the platform supported. So the way this platform supported atomic synchronization works is we have operational data stores in those platforms. For example, in case of Microsoft Cloud, Cosmos DB is a very popular NoSQL operational data store. As and when a change happens in Cosmos DB because of any application change, it automatically identifies the change, converts it into a compiler format, and using a secured Synapse link technology based on HTAP, high transactional analytical processing, it moves the data into the Microsoft Analytics store called Synapse. So here, there's no code is written. It's only a matter of enabling this feature, and automatically, instantaneously, within a fraction of a second, the change in Cosmos DB will be available into your Synapse world. In addition to this example that I gave you around Cosmos DB and Synapse, which is on the same platform of Azure, the platforms are realizing that organizations are using multiple platforms at the same time, and they are coming up with new partnerships to support this automatic synchronization. So one example of that is Salesforce and Snowflake. So organizations who are Salesforce user and using Salesforce Data Cloud, that same Data Cloud data can be shared and used from your Snowflake tenant without physically moving the data. So there's no need for you to move. All your Salesforce data is available in Snowflake for you to analyze. Similarly, there are other platforms who are supporting the similar technologies and feature. As an example, Redshift in September last year has announced their own features of their own operational data stores in Aurora, RDS, and DynamoDB. That same data from all of these three operational stores is available directly into Redshift environment for analytical purposes without moving the data from any of these stores. And recently, Salesforce has also started supporting the Spark using EMR. So you do not need to move any data, write any glue pipelines, and the same data is available in Spark in AWS. Salesforce has also done partnership with AWS. So the same technology, Salesforce Data Cloud, can now be shared and accessed in AWS Redshift without physically moving the data. Microsoft is also investing into this. And in addition to supporting Cosmos DB, the other operational database, SQL Server, and Microsoft Azure SQL, they support the same feature. Automatically, the data, if you are on SQL 2022 version or using Azure SQL, automatically the data will move into Synapse without you writing any pipelines. And going back to my original story example around one of the customers who are doing CRM analytics. CRM backend platform is called Dataverse, which is sitting into Azure Cloud. So using the same Synapse link feature, the Dataverse data is automatically available into Synapse without us writing any pipelines. And that's the feature we are using now for the CRM analytics project for our customer. Microsoft Fabric is the next version of Synapse. And Fabric have also introduced a new feature called shortcuts. So for example, if you have an Amazon AWS S3 bucket that you want to analyze in Microsoft Cloud, you can create a shortcut and analyze and query the data in S3 bucket without physically moving the data. And Databricks has also supported this feature called Delta sharing. So you can share your Delta tables created in Databricks and use it outside Databricks. Let's quickly talk about the external tool supported. So where platforms are still not supporting it, you can use external tools. And what they do is they provide automated data movement by using a ready-made data connectors, which are primarily SaaS and cloud-based. You can use them, configure them, and start to move the data. What they do is they do an initial sync of your data, and after that, as soon as the change is identified, they will move it across, depending on how often you want to run the pipelines. And I know Ravi Shukla from Atlas Copco here sitting, he's looking at one of these solutions to move his SAP data into Azure today. The third one is the code first. So where platforms are not supporting, where data connectors are not available, or you cannot use the connectors because of various licensing cost implications, you can create your own synchronization using CDC technology, where you will identify a change and put the change in front of a message bus like Kafka or Spark streaming to move this data. And we heard from Mandar yesterday. He also talked about CDC and streaming as one of the options. So what next? These are some of the emerging ways you can use it to build your data platform in a much faster way. The whole theme around multi-cloud is acceleration. So you can accelerate your data pipelines by using some of these new emerging approaches, but it's a big implications. Data ingestion is a crucial way factor in the entire data analytics journey. So use your organizational strategy using different criteria like what is the talent pool, what is your analytical strategy, what is the strategy of your operational data stores? Because operational data store are becoming main point of synchronizing this data. So keeping all of this in mind, you can come up with your own strategy of how are you going to use the technology to synchronize the data from your operations store to your analytics store. So I'll end my presentation with a small story from our last year Innovation Summit in Dubai. So one of the executives, while in Dubai, decided to take a hot air balloon ride in desert, and soon realized that he is lost and he needs some help. So he looked down below and saw a man riding on a camel. So he yelled at him, says, "Help, help, I think I'm lost. Can you tell me where am I?" So the man on the camel says, "You are 200 meters above the sea level, you are 100 nauticals north, and you are going towards east direction." So the executive on the on the balloon says, "Are you a data analyst?" He says, "Yes." "How do you know?" He says, "The information you gave me is so accurate, but it's not helpful for me." So the guy on the camel says, "Are you a CEO?" He says, "Yes." "How do you know?" He said, "You do not know where you are. You have no idea where you are going. And now you expect me to help you." Thank you.